Hey, I'm here to bring you your daily mental health enlightenment, and today I want to talk about self-sabotagers. This is such an important topic to discuss because the majority of the people that I see in my office are coming in order to reach their next best level, in order to progress in life, and primarily the barrier between them and the progress that they want to see is themselves. And so when people behave in a way that causes problems in their own lives and then stops them from achieving their goals and making the progress that they want to make, they are sabotaging themselves. And so I want to talk a little bit about that concept, and then you can see if you are a sabotager to yourself. Okay, so first I want to talk about the different types of sabotaging. The first type is when people destroy their own relationships. They can do this by pushing people away, whether they're acting aggressively, whether they act erratically, whether they're untrustworthy, whether they're unfaithful, whether they're liars. There could be a number of different ways that people push people away in order to destroy their own relationships. The second type of sabotaging is procrastination. When someone puts off accomplishing a task to the very last minute, to where they back themselves up against the wall and where they don't have adequate time to perform to their top and best level. So when people are evaluating them and the product that they produce, it's not their top level. It's something that they just barely squeaked out. And so that procrastination often serves for them to be evaluated less than their level. And so that causes them to sabotage an opportunity for themselves. The third type of sabotaging that there is avoidance. And this typically involves avoidance of opportunities that can lead someone to their next level. When someone is invited to have a business meeting with a power person who can get them to their next level, and then they choose not to attend that meeting. When someone is offered a partial scholarship to return back to school to get the license or degree that they need to get to their next level, and then they don't attend school, they avoid doing that. Those are some examples of avoiding the opportunities that present themselves for you to get to your next level. The next type of sabotaging is when people act in a reckless manner with no consideration of the consequences that are going to come as a result of that. And so they've been working really hard for a certain period of time to build a certain area of their life up, and then all of a sudden they do something that is reckless, that is erratic, that blows apart and blows up everything that they've been working on building up. I see people do this all the time. They work with me for months and months, and they build up, let's say, their financial stability. And then all of a sudden they start calling off of work. Then they end up getting suspended from work. Then their paycheck and their money is funny, and they're behind on bills, and everything financially they worked on, now they've torn down. Another type of sabotaging is when people self-medicate with alcohol, with drugs, and even with food. You introduce alcohol and drugs and food into your life, and then it alters your thinking. It alters your decision making. It alters your ability to engage in productive and progressive action. And then the last type of sabotaging that we'll discuss is learned helplessness. And this is when someone at one point in time was faced with a barrier to their success. And it was real at one point. But then in the future, The barrier was no longer there. However, in their mind, they tricked themselves into believing that it is. And so what they did from there is then not try to move forward, believing that there's a barrier there that's stopping me. So they have learned to be helpless because at one point in time there was a barrier there that stopped them, and now in their mind they have created that barrier to be there long lasting. And so when people allow themselves to fall into the trap of learned helplessness, that is also a form of self-sabotage. Okay, so now we want to talk about 5 main reasons that people sabotage themselves. The first reason is that people have a fear of failure or a fear of success. So in order to avoid failing or in order to avoid being in a position of succeeding, what they do is they sabotage the opportunity and themselves altogether, so they don't have to face the feelings of either failing or succeeding and then not feeling good enough to be in the position of succeeding. The second reason that people will sabotage themselves is that they are repeating a history of others destroying them. So they've had people in their lives who have destroyed them or taken away opportunities for them, and so they learn to do those very things for themselves. Unfortunately, I see where parents envy their children, they're jealous of their children, they wish that they had the talents and abilities that their children have. And so for instance, when a prestigious music school approaches the parent and says, hey, I want your 7th grade child to come and join our school, we have an orchestra that will train him or her, and the parent shuts that down and says, no, he or she is not going to do that. That is a form of the parent destroying opportunities for the child, and then the child becomes an adult and they learn how to engage in behaviors that destroy opportunities for themselves. The third reason that people sabotage themselves is because they have a lack of self-esteem and self-worth, so they don't feel good enough to be receiving the opportunities that are coming to them, to gain the success that is coming their way, to progress in the ways that they're progressing. So they do something to sabotage the opportunity or the relationship. The fourth thing is that people feel ill-equipped for the success that they're preparing themselves for. And so because they don't feel prepared and they feel ill-equipped, they do something to sabotage the experience. And then finally, people have a fear of being hurt. Now, this primarily occurs within relationships. So because someone has a history of constantly being let down by people, constantly being hurt by people, being lied to, being mistreated, being abused by people, they expect that that is going to happen to them in future relationships. So for fear of being hurt, in order to avoid that hurt that they are predicting will happen, they sabotage the relationship that they're in. Okay, so now we want to talk about 5 quick steps to how you can begin to stop sabotaging yourself if this is something that you do. So the first thing you need to do is identify and accept that you are a sabotager to yourself. You have to identify that you do it, when you do it, and how you do it, and you need to accept that it's something that you do. The second thing is that you want to identify the underlying reasons that you are sabotaging yourself in the first place. Are you afraid to fail or succeed? Is this something that you learned from how other people in your life treated you? Do you not have the self-esteem and self-worth that you need in order to sustain the success that's coming to you? Do you feel unprepared for your success? Or are you afraid of being hurt? What's the underlying reason that you are sabotaging yourself? Once you identify that, you then want to address those underlying reasons And I suggest that you do that in therapy. And yes, I am a psychologist, and I do think it's important to get with people who are trained, who understand these issues, and who understand how to help people identify the issues, resolve them, and move forward beyond them. And not just people who are friends or family or close to you, who are going to be your yes people, or who are going to tear you down, or you think you're good, you're not going to be able to get past this, you always been this way. You want to get outside of that and get with someone who is trained to help you move past this. The fourth thing you want to do is then you want to make the decision to stop sabotaging yourself. That is important. So many of the people that I work with, they come in, they identify with me, their feelings and the issues that are going on, the dysfunctional patterns that they're stuck in, and where people often get stuck is they don't then engage in the action that is needed. Simply discussing it and knowing, those are the first steps. You then have to have the courage to take the action to change. So you need to decide that you are going to stop sabotaging yourself. And then the last thing you want to do is change your self-sabotaging thoughts and behaviors, and you want to replace them with productive, progress promoting thoughts and behaviors. Okay? All right. So that is the video. At some point in all of our lives, we all do things to sabotage ourselves and our relationships. And then there are some of us who do this more chronically than others. So if you heard yourself in this video, take heed to the tips that I gave you and start working on that. If someone that you know or love struggles with this, show them this video, forward it to them, direct them to my YouTube channel, One Dope Psychologist, to view the video, to be able to use the tips, these free tips that I'm giving on how to become better. All right, so what's the message? To think about mental health in a different way, a way that helps you to understand that this mental health thing can be so deep that it can cause you to turn on yourself. And I'll see you tomorrow.